Oh yeah, the whole team will do it. They'll
Wow.
all send me a text personally and say, "Hey, is everything okay?" Like I remember vividly in 2020, December of 2020, my grandfather passed away, and I just sent a red dot and said, "Hey, Pop's passed away. Mentally, I probably won't be available for the rest of the day." And immediately, like the whole team, one after the other, just called one by one and just to check on me and everything. And so that's kind of the culture that we built up with that. And they all know that it's a bot. They all 100% know that it's a bot, but I still check it every time. And they know that I'm going to check it.
Mm.
It's just a way to check in on everybody and make sure that they all know that I'm checking in on them constantly. So it's kind of a retention tool that we use because we're 100% remote.
There is so much talk right now about automation and AI and how it's going to change the world and take jobs and everything else. Today's guest is an expert. In fact, he told me before we recorded this show that it's what he's been doing a lot of. He's been doing a lot of talking about this because in his business, he owns an HVAC company, completely virtual. They don't even have a shop. And he's found that automation and even some AI is important in keeping him engaged with his team and making sure that everybody is on the same page. Tersh Blissett is the founder of Service Business Mastery. It's a podcast and a learning platform for contractors to discover ways to better grow their business. And he's my guest today, and I cannot wait to dig in. I want to welcome to the show, Tersh Blissett. Tersh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
I'm excited to have you back. It's been a while since we've had a chance to catch up. And it sounds like you have been working on some really cool stuff in the industry. Automation, AI, it's all the buzz now. Yeah, AI is going to change the world and take over jobs and all that other stuff. And you've got an HVAC company and you've been in the industry for a long time. You've got a podcast helping service business owners really streamline their business and really make things go well for them. We were talking about automation AI. I'd love to know what is happening in that space. What are you seeing and what can our listeners be on the lookout for?
Man, first off, thank you so much for inviting me back. Apparently I didn't do a terrible enough job the first time. So
We'll work on it this time.
no, I am guilty of chasing that shiny object. I have shiny object syndrome, admittedly, and it's not a great thing. I just recognize that about myself. But one thing that I haven't, I guess I found AI and it has so many different things that are coming out that I don't lose my attention when it comes to AI in the trades like I do with some other things. Like I actually have 2 HVAC companies and 2 plumbing companies and an electrical company, and they're in the same market. They compete against each other. And so there's a lot that I A/B test between the 2 of them. And it's kind of a weird dynamic because TriStar is very much a high volume, low margin company. So we do Section 8 property management companies, that type of thing. And then Service Emperor is the opposite, where it's lower volume, higher margin. And so there's certain things that you can't do with that company that you can do with TriStar. So I'm able to test out things a lot. And the AI and automation side of things, it allowed me to automation I've been doing for years and years and years using Zapier and different CRMs. And I'm able to not have to hire quite as many office people. I'm not going to say that I'm able to replace office staff by using AI or automation, but I have the ability to not necessarily need to hire quite as many people to do tasks because I'm able to use automation and now AI. So it's really cool. And now we're at the point to where we're teaching other people how to do it, which is kind of weird because I thought it was just going to be a side hobby. And now it's become such a passion that we're talking about it as a keynote at Service World Expo. So it's weird.
That is so cool. And I caught something that you said there. And I know that people, we talk about AI, we hear about automation. Automation, AI has been around for decades. Like it's just only recently gotten available to everybody. And the media has done a really good job of making sure that everybody knows about it. But you said something that I caught, that automation is on the office side of things. You're able to hire less people in the office so they can focus more on things probably like customer service and nurturing the customer and having those difficult conversations, those kinds of things. What's happening on the technician side? Is automation AI out there to replace them? Are you hiring less technicians because of automation and AI?
No. I, we'll never replace the hands-on aspect of a technician, and having that person and that person's personality going into the home of the homeowner and having that conversation with them and figuring out the technical side of things. Like we have programs out there that can look at what you're looking at and show me exactly what you're doing. So then I can say, all right, test this lead to that, and have tech support doing the same thing. There's tons of programs out there where you can put on like smart glasses and view exactly what the technician's doing. As long as you have good enough signal, those things take a ton of bandwidth. But if you have good enough
Mm.
signal, you can see what the technician is doing and walk them right through all the steps. There are platforms out there that friends of ours we talked about before the show. They have chat support via AI that you can literally ask the AI agent. I wouldn't call them a bot because they're more than a bot, questions, and they will give you the answer. There's other platforms out there that will actually teach you the right answer. It doesn't just give you the answer, but it teaches you how to know the answer so that in the future you don't have to worry about having to ask the same question over and over again. And one of the things that those do is frees up your senior technicians from having to answer questions from junior techs all day long. And they can concentrate on doing what they do best, and that's closing leads and selling to your customers, instead of being distracted constantly by junior technicians and answering their questions.
I think that's an interesting distinction there with what these customer support bots, if you will, are doing to help the technicians in the field, because we've talked about the labor shortage. Like we all know there's a labor shortage, and it's not that there's a shortage of labor, it's just there is a shortage of skilled labor.
Mm-hmm.
The days of being able to say, hey, I need 5 technicians with 5+ years experience who all want to work here and do it for my pay, and those days are gone. And so the labor that we're seeing now is the new generation, the kids, if you will, that are coming into the industry that have a lot to learn. And we can either take them and put them in, pay them a salary to ride along with a senior technician who, by definition, will get slowed down,
Absolutely.
or we can get them the training and the skills they need through some of these automation and AI tools so they can be supported in the field. And then your senior techs can focus
Mm-hmm.
on the selling and the repeat business and those kinds of things.
That's exactly right. You literally are going to be covering the overhead of that junior technician learning by allowing that senior technician to keep doing what they do best. And you don't have to worry about, now we're going to just lose money for 2 months while this junior guy rides around with a senior technician, and the senior technician gets bogged down with a bunch of questions. And I love a junior technician to ask questions, as long as it's not the same question over and over again. That's kind of irritating. But
Agreed. Yeah.
I don't like a technician who is just like, okay, okay, all right. I 100%, I was the guy that said, but why? Like, but why is it that way?
Mm,
But why does it do that? And so when I hear a technician do that, then instantly I'm like, all right, this is going to be a good technician. As long as they're actually absorbing everything that they're asking. I love technicians that ask questions. So these apps and these programs, they're perfect for that, because every time you have a question, it's going to answer it. And depending on what you're using, there's some that are going to answer it with teaching, and they're going to show you exactly how to know what you're asking, know the answer to what you're asking. And it's
mhm.
not just because I told you so. It's, well, let's work through this and let me show you exactly why this is the answer.
Yeah, I think that training and onboarding people and all that does require some nurturing. And so, what we're allowing this to happen is that we can still nurture these guys without having to repeat the stuff that a bot can train them or that they can go learn on their own. And we were talking about some of the companies out there that are doing some of these bots and some of the learning programs that are out there. And there's just so much stuff that's happening in this space. And it's relatively inexpensive to do these things too, is what I understand. Is
Oh
that
yeah.
correct?
Oh yeah. $25 a tech per month at the most.
Wow.
Yeah. And then one of them is free if you're using their platform. Can I say what they are?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna promote somebody, go for it.
So I promote these companies all the time because they're friends of.
Stop turning away work, burning out your team, and working so hard. Learn about the proven process that businesses everywhere are using to save time, save money, and hire all the people they need. We'll train your team to implement and run this process in-house so you can grow as fast as you want. Book a call with our team at corematters.com.
Mine, and I love their product. So Bluon,
Love it.
so if you go to bluon.ai, you can beta test it until it's out, and it's free right now, 100% free. It's an AI chatbot. It's called the Master Mechanic, and they will answer questions. The limitation with this platform is that you have to know how to ask questions. You don't have to be a prompt engineer, which is the person who comes up with like the ultimate way of asking a question.
Sure.
But what you do need to do is be able to still ask a question in kind of I don't want to say an educated way, because that's not what I mean, but almost in a prompt engineering way, in order to get the answer. Because the way you word your question will influence the way you get the answer. So I don't know if that makes 100% sense to everybody, but if you've ever used Chat GPT and you've asked it a question and then you ask the same question a different way and you get a completely different answer, you'll understand what I mean by that. And it's very much that way with this program, but it's learning. It's still in beta now. It is changing and updating constantly, and so it's a really cool program. The other program is Interplay Learning. It's $25 a month to have the whole program, and this is just part of the program. So you ask it the question, and then it's already a teaching platform. So it's got tons of teaching modules in it, and it'll revert you back to one of the teaching modules. Or if you don't have time, like if you're on a job site and you're asking Sam, which is the one for Interplay Learning, the question, then it'll just tell you, like, this is how you figure out the answer. Now let's work through it to figure out the correct answer to your question. So both of those platforms are really awesome platforms that I play with constantly.
And for those of you listening right now going, hey, I want to know more about Bluon and I want to know more about Interplay. We've had Ken with Interplay on the show in the past, but you're going to introduce me to Brian, who's going to even be able to crack that open a little bit more. And hopefully we can get Peter on the show too from Bluon, and we can really share that stuff as well. So just so everybody knows, if you're listening to this, you're like, hey, I want to know more about those platforms, Tersh is going to hook me up and we're going to get those people on the show. And so we can learn more about those platforms. And the cool thing that I've seen with some of these platforms too, is a lot of them started in the skilled trades, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and they're slowly starting to branch out, because we do a lot of work with subcontractors in the construction space, and they're all thinking, well, how do we teach them? And we're starting to see some of these people going, hey, there's new opportunities here.
Yeah, Interplay, one of the really cool things about Interplay Learning is they have tons of different things. So like multi-housing, new construction, like condos, building condos, safety. They have a whole modules on nothing but safety in the construction.
That's a big one.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. It's so neat. And I mean, and that's just the learning side of things. And that's where AI can help with training the next generation of workers, which we all know is a challenge. And all the studies say that that's the number one thing that is lacking right now in the workplace is structured training, helping people take their skill set or their career to the next level. And these platforms that are all built on AI, which I imagine gets the cost down, makes them very affordable, is able to help you with training the future workforce. But then there's the automation side of it too, because we work with we probably have a lot of people listening right now that are smaller entrepreneurs. You know, maybe they've only got a dozen trucks on the road or something, and the owner is constantly being pulled back in or constantly dealing with the fact that things are getting missed. And there's that automation side of it, which I'm sure AI has to play with, but there's that automation that's happening too. And you'd mentioned Zapier, but there's probably other things out there happening right now.
Tons of things. Like if you use if this then that, that's another very simple to use. One of the big things for us is every time there's a 5-star review generated, and we use Slack for internal communication within our team. Anytime we get a 5-star review, Zapier automatically gets that information and puts it straight into Slack and says, congratulations to the technician that generated this 5-star review. And it sends it as if it's me. So it's not always the same message, because it goes into Chat GPT, which generates a message. And so it's a little bit different every time. So some of the guys know that it's a bot or it's automated, but then others, they don't know it. But then even after Zapier sends that information into Slack, congratulating them, great job to, JJ for getting this 5-star review with this client, their name, it pulls the data from the review. Then I'll go in there myself and be like, great job, give it up to them. And it announces it to the whole team. So it gives it an all channel tag. So then it announces it to everybody. Little things like that, that engagement. Another thing that we automate is a check-in 3 times a day. And the first
Mm,
one is at 7:30, I want to say. And then the other two are kind of randomized in times. And they all they have to do is send a green little emoji dot, yellow or red. And green says, I'm good to go, ready to rock and roll. You can do a 2 green, which means you're super green, which means I'm on
mm.
top of the world, ready to go, ready to rock and roll.
Contrary to the super green, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
brand
no,
new.
yeah,
It's
right.
just so we're clear.
Exactly. But and then there's yellow, which means I'm stuck. I'm in a funk right now. Like I might be stuck on a job. I can't get through it, or I'm starting to get frustrated or whatever. And if there's ever a yellow, they all know that I'll stop whatever I'm doing and then I'll text them and say, hey, are you okay? You need anything from me? Then there's red, which means I'm done. I'm ready to quit for the day. I'm ready to, like, I'm just spent, whatever the case may be. And they all know that no matter what, if they send a red, I'll stop whatever I'm doing. Like if I got a red right now, I'd have to pause our recording and make a phone call with them and say, hey,
Wow.
what can I do to help? And so they all know red is their go-to, like, I need a helping hand type thing. So that gets sent out 3 times a day. And the reason the first one is always first thing in the morning before they start the day, I want to know how they're coming into the day. Like I want to know how their day's starting. Like I'm not a morning person. So if they were asking me, and I always try to engage as well so that they know how my day is going as well. But uh, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm kind of a yellow this morning because I'm not feeling it because I stayed up too late last
So
night.
who picks up the phone and calls
Yeah.
you?
Oh, they do it all the time.
Oh, do they?
Oh yeah, the whole team will do it. They'll
Wow.
all send me a text personally and say, "Hey, is everything okay?" Like I remember vividly in 2020, December of 2020, my grandfather passed away, and I just sent a red dot and said, "Hey, Pop's passed away. I'm just mentally, I probably won't be available for the rest of the day." And immediately, like the whole team, one after the other, just called one by one and just to check on me and everything. And so that's kind of the culture that we built up with that, and they all know that it's a bot. They all 100% know that it's a bot, but I still check it every time. And they know that I'm going to check it.
Mm.
It's just a way to check in on everybody and make sure that they all know that I'm checking in on them constantly. So it's kind of a retention tool in that we use because we're 100% remote. So we don't see each other very often, like in person.
Yeah.
We see each other on Zoom
Yeah.
constantly, but not in person. And that's one of the ways for me to keep a pulse on everybody every day. And it's completely automated. Like I've said it a long time ago, and I haven't messed with it again since then.
Love that. In the book that I just had come out, we talk about automation
Hmm.
and the things that you should be automating. And there's two things you need to automate. You need to automate things that are important, which it sounds like you did. You also need to automate the things that are predictable. People are going to have a bad day. We can predict that people are going to have a bad day. So you've automated that check-in just so that it happens, because when you're having a bad day, the last thing you want to do is forget. And then they think, oh, well, he didn't care today. It's like, no, I care enough that I'm willing to automate this.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Said something that I thought was really cool. And I'd love to know a little bit more about that. You had said that you have built a company culture where, maybe you didn't use these exact words, but what I heard was that everybody cares about everybody else. Like that is cool.
It's tough, especially like I had someone on our team that was a great worker. They brought in a lot of money,
Mhm.
but they were a culture killer. And
Ooh.
what it was the toughest thing was the fact that they killed the culture without me being around, as far as because we're remote, they interacted with each other as technicians a lot, and they were ruining things without, like, when I was around, they were a great person to be around, perfect personality. But the moment that I wasn't around, it was just negative everything. Negative Nancy, like this could be done different, like blah blah blah. Never gave me that same feedback. And so it was just everything was negative. And it took me a long time I mean, I say a long time, like 6 months to learn, because they were also the senior person at that time too. And so
Mm.
nobody else wanted to be the narc that told on that person. And so it was
Yeah.
like, golly, like we're going through technicians that I know are great people. And like on their exit interview, They were like, "I don't know, you just need to check your culture." Check my culture? Like, I 3 times a day I'm checking the culture. And they're like, "Yeah, but you got somebody that's green no matter what color they are." And I'm like, "I don't even understand what that means." And they said, "Well, you'll figure it out." I remember that conversation with somebody as they exited, and I was like, "I'll figure that out."
Wow.
And then I did. I found out, like, the reason that person said that was because he told everybody that all the time behind my back, I guess. Like, I'm green no matter what color I am. So, like, every day he'd put in green all day long, but knowing he's yellow or red. And I was like, these are not there to pacify me. Like, this is there for me to check in with you and to make sure you're okay. And it wasn't like, as soon as I figured that part of it out, we parted ways so he could have better luck somewhere else, have better opportunities somewhere more suited to him. But it was like, I didn't realize how bad it hurt things, but it really did. It took probably a year to recover from that. We're just now getting to where we recover from that whole
Wow.
bad apple. And that's one of the hardest things about being remote is you got to keep your pulse on everybody. And if you're not, if you just lax off a little bit, then it's easy for it to turn south.
Well, I mean, you're in an industry though that, and I just want to be clear, like you don't even have a shop. Like you are fully virtual remote. And I'm sure that some people hear that and they're like, oh, they were thinking I'm remote. I got technicians behind the windshield all day. That's not what you're talking about. But I do think that in the industry, I mean, you look at services, like, field services, home services, commercial services, there's all a portion of your workforce that is remote, behind the windshield, they're at the customer site. Construction, we do a lot of work with construction companies. They are remote. People are out at the job site. So there is an element of remote. How do you, and I know we're getting off automation AI for a second, but I really am curious,
Yeah.
like, what's one tip you can give us? Like, what's the one thing that you found has been the thing that kind of cracked it open for you so that you could attract and hire the kind of people that do care, that are willing to say, hey, I'm a yellow and I trust that I can say that and people will take care of me? Or you can trust enough to say, I'm a red and people won't look at you as, oh, well, he's worthless today. I'm going to leave him alone. Like, they actually invested in taking time out of their day to reach out to you and make sure you're okay. Like, that's unique.
Yeah, I think it's 2 parts, and it didn't come overnight for me. So if anybody's listening to this and want to implement the same exact process, just take my word for this. I never respond inside of the chat publicly because that chat's public chat for everybody. So I never respond to somebody who is a yellow or red inside there, other than I'll s- I'll say, "Hey, I just sent you a text." That way, everybody knows that I sent a text, but they don't know what I said in the text.
Yeah,
And so
makes sense.
speed to the lead, speed to that response. So
Mm,
the moment they send that yellow, like, I'd want to send the response back instantly. Consistency, the consistency of the automation, but then the consistency of responding to them and knowing that one of the biggest things for that one guy that was green all the time was he didn't want his business out there. That when he exited, that was his thing. And even though I told him I never would share anything publicly, he was like, "Yeah, but I didn't believe it." And I was like, "I'm sorry that that's the
mm,
case." And so proving that to everyone constantly, if anybody was yellow, the only way that they would eventually trust me fully was for me to be vulnerable in myself and putting when I was yellow or when I was red. And whenever I was yellow, and the first person started texting me and I explained to them what was going on, I knew that they were going to go back and tell everyone else that, which was fine with me. But the fact that when they asked me, I gave them an honest answer as to why I was yellow.
mm,
And then they went back and told everyone else, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, well, that wasn't that bad. He's just in a funk right now." And I was like, "Yeah, but still reach out to me, for anything else that you need." Like, that's the biggest thing. So them being able to trust that I would follow the process, I would be vulnerable. Even I was vulnerable, just like I wanted them to be vulnerable, and I would never share anything publicly. Then the speed to actually interacting with them and reaching out to them. Those are really the biggest things, and having that very open communication with everyone that I'm not going to share this with anyone else. I'm not going to respond to on here. like what's going on with you. Like they're in the morning time, it's not uncommon to get some yellows from individuals that just aren't morning people. And I'll shoot them a text like, "Hey man, everything all right?" Like, "Yeah, I just had a bad night. Didn't sleep very well." Like, "All right, dude, if you
Mm,
need me, holler at me. You know I'm here." And like it's having that, it develops a relationship even though we're not sitting there talking to each other. Like this past weekend, we had an event in Savannah in the squares. It's called Wagaween, and our whole team was invited to come to this event as well, and they all showed up. And it's like, wow, like you're not getting paid to be here. We're just hanging out together. And they're like, yeah. And they like, one guy brought his kids, and he has like a 7-month old, and I'm walking around the squares carrying the 7-month old, and it's like I wouldn't say that we are family because there's family members I haven't talked to in 10 years. I'd say we're
mhm.
very close friends who understand that there are boundaries with work, and we all respect it. So like it's tough to say we're a family because
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like all of my family, so that's not a great thing. But
We get the family conversation a lot around values and, how you describe yourself in the business. So I totally get it,
yeah,
but I love that friends with boundaries
yeah,
concept.
hmm
What I heard is if you really want your team to engage at the level you're talking about, you've got to do two things. Number one, you have to be consistent with the check ins. You've got to be consistent in whatever you say you're going to do, which you've automated a portion of that. But then the portion, the yellows and the reds, you haven't automated. You just know I have to be consistent because that's when people start to trust. But then I think the other thing you said that I really liked was you have to be vulnerable yourself. You have to be willing to put it out there yourself when you're a yellow or a red and share it with the team and be receptive when they reach out and have those conversations, and that will build trust further. And really once you've built that trust, that's when you get what you've got, which is amazing. And I get why it takes some time, but that consistency and that vulnerability is just, I mean, that's the secret sauce from what I
yeah,
just heard.
it
Did I
is.
get
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
right?
100%. And that's the truth when it comes to that. It's funny because when you do have a new person come on the team and they're like, don't that's weird. Like I've worked at a bunch of other air conditioning companies. Nobody's ever done this. I don't really
Yeah.
know if I like this whole process. And then after a couple months, they're like consistent check in. And the other thing is I use it as a safety tool too. So like if somebody hasn't checked in 3 times in the same day, like I'm making sure that they're safe as far as like they're not stuck in an attic anywhere. Like after we've sent this out and they have they haven't responded to us, they haven't checked in on a different platform or anything in 45 minutes. Like I'm checking in on them, like just to make sure that they're safe. They're not stuck in an attic or whatever, stuck somewhere and they can't communicate with us.
That's fantastic. Tersh, I know we keep talking about this stuff. There's so much to unpack here, but we're at
Oh,
time.
wow.
So, for those people that are listening, going, this guy is a genius. I want more of this. You've got a podcast. You've got ways people can learn more from you. You got a platform that you're building. Tell our listeners, how can they get a hold of you? How can they learn more? How can they learn more? You've got some automation resources. Like, tell them how.
So servicebusinessmastery.com, that's where our podcast lives. Josh and I, who were co-hosts on the podcast, we created a little template resource of automation ideas. So there's like 60 of them on there right now currently. And it shows you most of them, not every single one of them, but most of them, it shows you step by step how to automate all the processes. And these are processes that we use within our businesses. Josh has a digital marketing agency, so there's some digital marketing things on there. And it's under the recommended resources tab and a little drop down. And all you do is click on there, and it's a Google document. And I do update that particular document regularly. So every time we have some new ideas and stuff, I will punch it right in there. And so just keep that document. Don't use it one time and then discard it because it's
Don't just download it and think you're gonna get the updates.
yeah.
I'm gonna go download it. It sounds amazing,
It,
and I love this idea of automation. Hirsch, this was amazing. I learned so much every time you and I talk, and thank you for being on the show again,
absolutely.
and thank you for the wisdom.
If I could say one more thing, Ryan, if you're listening to this and you haven't picked up that book, you got to pick it up because there's tons of golden nuggets in this book as well. more so than you'll get from my automation resources page. But
And for those people that aren't watching, they're just listening. What book is that?
it's Hire Better People Faster. And I think you may have heard of who it is written by. It's this guy here, Ryan. So I appreciate that.
My brand new book that just came out. I've gotten that feedback that there's some good nuggets in it. So thank you for that, Tersh.
Yeah,
thank you so much. And thanks
Absolutely.
again for being on the show. Really enjoyed it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.